Hey guys, so we are going to go through a little bit of the setup that we do for our backend code and everything, just to kind of get everything provisioned and ready to go, so we can start coding. Kind of the first thing that we do, right? We have our database that we set up previously. We have our code pulled. We have everything going there. So kind of what I want to do is I want to add a configuration, and what this is going to do is allow me to connect my debugger to whatever process I'm going to I want to execute and run my code against. This is typically from your package JSON scripts, like your start or something like that, right? That way you have that debugger connected. So we're going to go down here. We're going to say npm. We want the run command, and I'm going to find my start command there, and that's all I really need to do. So what that guy is, in our package JSON, you can see we have our start, which runs our build, which does a clean and copy of the dist directory, which is the distribution directory of what we're going to run. And then it just starts that process for us. So that's kind of what setting that up did and does. So if we go ahead and fire our debugger, in this case, Azure on backend code, right? We want to put in breakpoints and do things the right way versus console logs. So we really need to ensure that we have our debugger set up. So we do that. Our server's up and going. Great. And now, assuming we have any endpoints, we could make these requests. So it looks like the boilerplate here, we do have a login request, which is awesome because we did add that user to the database previously. As you can see here, one thing that I did do in the interim is I added a password column and then populated that as well with a password for my user here. So if we want to test this and make sure that, cool, my server's up, but what do I do with it? How do I work on my server code? I want to go into Postman. All right. And what I did is I set up a new workspace. So just create a workspace. This is a personalized workspace. And I'm going to show you a few cool things to do in the process of this. So we have our workspace. This is our actual environment here. So what I want to do is, the way I like to set it up, and you don't have to do it this way, it just makes it nice and readable. And when we share anything, right, just having that readability is really nice. So in this case, I want to have it as user, right? Because that's the API that I want to work against. And then inside of here, I want to add my request. So this is going to be our login request. All right. With this guy, he is a post request, as I can see here. So I want to make sure I have him as a post request. All right. And then what I see a lot of people do is they'll just add, hey, this is my local host, whatever my port is, and my API route, right? But we don't want to do that. It's not very efficient. You have to type that in every time. And then if you change anything or you want to run it against a different environment, you have to change that as well. So we want to go in here and we want to add an environment, right? And then we're just going to call this guy localhost. And this is going to be all of our local host variables. So my host URL, or my default URL, is localhost with the port. Right? Now the nice thing about this does is when I go back to my login, I can just say host API v1 user login, right? And that is the path to this guy. That is what pre is, API v1. We're in the user API, so we know it's user login, right? So that's that there. The nice thing again about this is I have host. You can see that it's not resolving. It doesn't find him, so I want to change my environment to localhost. Now I have my localhost connection. If I had another environment, right, that was sandbox or production, then I could just change those right here, and I can query against those different systems without actually changing anything in my Postman. So that's kind of the right way to set things up. We can go ahead and test this this query, or this API query. So what we have here is it's a post request, right? So we want to send through a body. We're sending across JSON in here. Now, how do I know what to send? Well, I'm going to look at the API route, and I'm going to go look at this interface. And this interface says that we have a username and a password, which is great. So we want to set those up. Username, this is my email. and then I have a password, and my password is test. Okay, we have that guy. Now I can fire my request. Looks like cool. I hit a breakpoint. Whether or not I want to step through this, I can. So we had the breakpoint set up. I can step through my code. I can see, hey, my username and password that came through, right? I can see what's happening. We're going to call into the user table and call this auth request. We're going to make our database query. It's going to come back with our user, right? And in this case, it is our model, our user model. So everything in the users. And then we're going to do this match. So do the bcrypt hash comparison on this value. Cool that the passwords do match. So we're going to return that user, and it looks like great. We logged in, right? Now the front end can do whatever it's going to do with that logic of we did pull the user from the database, we did authorize the user, and we return that user to the front end. So that is setting up that stuff and kind of your initial request. And yeah, that should be about it. Get you up and going with getting your connection, getting your debugger, getting Postman, and making that first test request. Thanks.